Hello and welcome back to Let's Chill, the official, unofficial Minnesota Wind Chill, Minnesota Strike podcast. I'm Jeff,
I'm Jay.
And I'm Kane.
and with us today we have Colin Berry. Colin, how's it going?
Pretty good, man. Just had a really great weekend with Sub-Zero up in Ely and just got back home and excited to do the pod.
Nice. Well, glad you can make the trek back in time for recording.
Yeah.
Okay. Question. So as the three of us have learned throughout the season, we've been messing up on names evidently. So let's just get this out there. We've been calling Brett Bergmeyer Brett instead of Bert. Uh, which he prefers Bert.
Sure.
We on our last podcast with Keely Mattis, we were calling Brandon Mattis just Brandon the whole time, and we were all like, "That's kind of weird. It's not just Brandon." So for the next like 30 to 40 minutes, what are we calling you?
Yeah. Great question. But I'm just calling.
All right,
I don't have any super interesting nicknames or anything that get thrown around a lot. So Colin works.
perfect. That makes it easier for us.
Now no one can tweet at us.
Okay, so usually we start these with like a stall seven trivia question. So you have basically the premises. You got 7 seconds to answer a trivia question. Uh, I have a trivia question about Colin that he gave me basically on Instagram. As we were DMing to get this set up. So I'm gonna bring this to Jay and Kane if you guys can answer this question. What was Colin's like summer internship when he was in school?
Bro. Second Harvest Heartland.
Let's say something at a hospital. It's very general.
No, Colin, do you want to share what your experience was?
Yeah, sure. I think calling it an internship is like super generous. It was just like job. I worked on hog farms in Iowa. Well, mostly hog, like farms of any kind. My dad like designs buildings for the company, and like once I turned 18, he was like, "All right, cool, you can come work for us now." And they were just kind of like animals break stuff in barns, like gates, doors, siding comes off, stuff like that. And I was like the guy. They were like, "Hey, go fix that. Come back when it looks like this." So it's like, all right, cool. Don't know what one of those are, but I'll try.
That's great.
That's pretty funny. And how has that experience shaped you to be the ultimate player that you are today?
I mean, it's the disc skills that I picked up as a. No, I mean, honestly, if I was to actually try to attribute something from like the field, it would definitely just be like the like gritty long point possessions, because a lot of the time the day got long. 5 o'clock came and stuff wasn't together, and you just couldn't leave till it was right.
Hmm.
Long practices, and trying to enjoy the grind. Like, I didn't really have a choice then, and so it makes it a lot easier now to just kind of like click back into that mode and like get things done sometimes.
Very insightful. Jay, do you have a trivia question?
Yeah, so this is for anybody. It's about Colin, but I don't know if Colin will know the answer to this question. How many career games has Colin played in the AUDL?
100? No, not 100. What?
That's a great question.
28.
I'm gonna say like 43.
Yeah, maybe like low 30s, I think, like 32 maybe.
No, it's actually his answer actually 48. So Jeff was pretty close.
Hey,
Wow.
Yeah,
Dang.
chasing 50.
pretty close there.
Yeah. What are we doing for your 50th game?
I don't know, man. I guess that's your call. I don't know. It's cool. I hope we win that day. All I want.
Yeah. I've always thought about when those. I don't have a trivia question, by the way, so I'm just gonna pigeon some conversation here to
Sure.
fill in this section of the pod for a little bit. I always wondered, you got those games like Brandon Mattis hit 100 career games last year, right?
Yeah.
Like, Imagine if they just got obliterated in that game. Like, what do you do when you have like a historic game and you just drop the ball? I feel like that would be devastating. I wouldn't be able to handle the pressure.
I mean, it wouldn't be fun. It what we try to do, I think a lot of teams try to do when things like that come up, where whether it's a big game or somebody's big like achievement like that, you just try to like kind of put that off to the side and just kind of focus on the game itself and how that's going and responding to it's kind of a game of adjustments these days throughout the game, and so trying to get on the forward foot to kind of maybe throw the first punch at an adjustment instead of kind of feeling like, okay, they took this away from us and now we need to do something to get our flow back. Like those types of little small goal focuses really help to keep your mind off of any of those like extraneous, like, oh yeah, Mattis is playing his 100th game today, we better figure out a way to win, like that's not super productive to like the immediate goal. It's super fun though when you accomplish it and then you get to be like, yeah, man, like let's sign the pylon. This was a huge dub. Like, way to go. 100 is, I mean, that's literally over twice the games that I've played, and I've been playing since 2017. So it's like it's a pretty tremendous achievement.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, so here's a couple more, like I guess we can call them warm-up questions just to get you in the headspace of your teammates specifically. So quizzing the captain kind of is what we're calling this. So as a captain on the wind chill, we're curious to kind of test you out here. Most of them are going to be pretty stat based just to see what you know, but here we go. So here's an easy one. Who wore number 13 before you did?
Pretty sure Beef, Spol Jurek.
That's right.
Yeah.
And then so did you choose that number then to switch to 13?
Yeah, so the number journey has been an interesting one. I like historically I've been a 3. Like ever since like little league baseball days. I've just like always been number 3. Like my grandpa played like minor league baseball, he was number 3. And so it's just sort of been my number, but then you get to the wind chill and Bevon's got 3. It's like I'm not going to take that from Bevon. I had 13 in like 2018 or something like that. And then I took a year off in 2019 and lost my seniority to the number. And then Beef is a 13, and it just like wasn't worth. I think I lost the coin flip or something, and so I was 24, and then now I'm 13 again. But it's like all about getting like those 3s in there,
Yeah. Interesting. I want to come back to this grandpa being in the minor leagues. That's like a whole other podcast, but that's super interesting. Back to quizzing the captain. This season so far, who has the most goals on the season on the wind chill?
Goals?
Yep.
I think it's Bevon. Unless it changed in the last couple of games. I think it was Bevon, so I think so.
You got half of it right. He's actually tied with someone.
He's tied with someone. It could be like Marco.
It is not.
It's not.
It's Quinn Snyder.
Quinn. I mean, that was stupid. Somebody other than Quinn in a goal stat. Quinn lives in the end zone.
Yeah. Okay, then on the flip side, who has the most assists this season?
Clan.
So far. Yep. Yeah, that's obvious. Okay, and then we'll round it out. Most blocks this season?
Most blocks. I think it might be like Bert.
It's not. Do you want to take a second guess?
Yeah, I don't think. Okay, wait a second. Who does have the most blocks? I should know this. I don't think it's Dylan.
It's not Dylan.
Yeah. I don't think it's Berglund. He's having a great year too. Yeah, I'm stumped. I can't think of who it might be. Who is it?
Tanner Marcus.
Oh yes, that's right. Yeah. He's been just laying it down, getting the blocks. It's awesome.
Yeah, that's pretty sweet. Okay, and then question about Ben Feldman. What is his day job?
He has like a various insurance type company that he I think he and his brother own it together. I can't remember. I think they're in you know, doing that together somehow.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, you know him pretty well. You know the team pretty well as the captain, as you should.
Yeah, gotta figure that blocks number out. Sorry, Tanner. Love you.
Yeah, it's pretty cool to see him like join the team and just like come in and wipe down offenses.
Yeah, it's great to have him. I mean, he's been in the community, I guess, for a season now. He played with Dragon, and he played with a ton of those D guys on Dragon. So I guess it like is not super surprising to me personally that he's playing well with them. Um, I mean, it's just awesome to see him succeed. He works super hard. He's just a great teammate. So it's super great to see, you know, come in and just clean house.
So going into focusing a little bit more on you now,
Sure.
I'm very curious about, you mentioned this on Instagram too, and we'll get to some of the nitty-gritty questions, but I'm very curious to hear more about you, like your background singing at wind chill games. Like that's such a unique aspect. Like, did you ever think that you'd ever consider going in more of like a theater or opera route, or like teaching music at all? Or because so for background, Colin would sing the national anthem before wind chill games, right?
Yeah. In 2017 and 2018, I sang the national anthem. And actually, I did that because I was already a music teacher. Um, so I went to school for music. I went to Luther College for music, and just was, you know, opera was my emphasis from a performance standpoint, and um, you know, sang the national anthem at tons of events, and you just sort of like, as I came up, it was sort of like a novelty, fun thing that I was like a singer, and like that was kind of my job. So yeah, I sang the national anthem for a couple of years, and then um, it was this, after 2019. Now I haven't since then, but it's like kind of nice. It was fun singing the national anthem. Like I like singing, and it was like people liked it, I think, but it was a super interesting like whirlwind of a headspace to like run up, like the wireless mic at Seaphone didn't like work correctly, so I had to like run up into the bleachers into the press box and then sing. And then like if we started on defense, we would have to like wait to start the game for me to like clink my way down the like bleachers and then just like run across the track onto the field, and then we just like pull in 30 seconds. So that was like kind of wild, trying to get into the right headspace to just perform, you know, immediately on the field after that. Like singing and ultimate are not exactly the same thing. Um, but yeah, I don't know if that answered like your question completely, but
Yeah, that's hilarious. That's awesome. I want to get a performance at some point or a clip of you singing, but that is awesome.
He went from performing in the booth to performing on the field in 30 seconds or less.
yeah, you got to do it.
So, oh, go ahead, Jake.
So you had mentioned on Instagram that you used to commute from games from Iowa with Dylan DeClerc.
Yeah.
Do you have any fun stories you can share about those rides or like anything like that?
I mean, Dylan's just a pretty funny guy. So I like most of our like road trips consisted of like pretty lively conversation the whole time. But there's like definitely one story that sticks out in my mind is we like we're going to Chicago for an away game, and one of our teammates, his like girlfriend is from Chicago, so she like sort of tagged along on the trip to like spend the weekend with her family and stuff. And we were going through this neighborhood that was just like not a super awesome part of town, and we were like picking her up to, you know, go back our to the team or something. And she like, we called her and she was like, yeah, I'm at this spot, like when you pick me up, like don't stop the car. And we were like, whoa, that's not awesome. And so every single time that like Chicago comes up or something like that, Dylan and I always like make eye contact, because it was just like a very different experience from like what, you know, we normally would have on a road trip. And it was just like very novel. We were, you know, early 20s, both of us, I think, you know, barely 21. So it was like, it was just very different. And like, oh, I don't know. It's slightly scary to hear that on the phone. And so it was like, now looking back, it's just hilarious to be like, hey, remember when that happened? But yeah.
Weird. That's weird. So now you live in the cities, right? In Minnesota here.
Yeah, I live in St. Paul.
Has that affected positively or negatively, like your commitment to the team or your approach to games, your availability? How has that changed kind of your game?
I mean, availability is definitely better now that I'm here. Like being able to go to like Tuesday weekday practices is huge. Once the season starts, that's all the practice there is, basically. So for the first 2 years in 17 and 18, not having that wasn't awesome. This is also the second time that I have been a captain of the wind chill. I was a captain in 2018 when I was living in Iowa. And so like it's way easier to be a captain of a team when you live in the place that the team is. So like that's probably the biggest positive. Has been like if somebody wants to talk about something, it's like we can get together and go grab a beer, or we can go get a meal and talk about something, and that is like pretty important, I would say, based like in my leadership style. I'm like a pretty relationships heavy type of captain, I like to think. So I try to like keep an open dialogue with everybody. So it makes it definitely easier to like feel actually like a part of what's going on and involved and all that stuff.
For sure, yeah. So when was like the time frame for the last time you were captain, you said?
2018.
Okay. So coming back now and doing it, how has that captainship changed? Like, have you noticed your responsibilities are greater now? Do you think they're a little bit more spread out? Or like, how has the captainship evolved over that time?
Yeah, great question. I would say like the biggest piece is that we have like a pretty stable and consistent like coaching presence right now. Like with Ben, Max, and Kelsey, they've been around. We've had them for multiple seasons in a row, and that takes a lot logistically off of like our plate as the captains. Being able to say like to have them post like a prospective practice plan, and then we read it and say like here is a tweak that I might make, is very different from my last experience where like Phil Bowen had coached the team in 2017 and it was like a little unclear what our coaching situation was going to be going into 2018. And then we didn't really, Aaron Maraca ended up being the coach, and she did not get like brought in with much notice at all. I think we had multiple weeks as a team where the captains were kind of like designing, implementing, leading practices, and so I would say that year it was much more like you're super nuts and bolts, you're in the weeds, like whatever we're good at is going to be whatever we practice. And so we want to make sure that we have like a cohesive view of what we want to be good at, what we need to stop other teams that, what we think other teams are going to be good at, all that stuff. That's a lot of bandwidth. And so I think the biggest difference now is like Ben then was not the head coach, but he was a rostered player and the GM and the partial owner. And so like he obviously had like opinions on what we should and shouldn't do, and he was at every call. And so like there was just a slightly less clear dynamic of like whose call stuff was, when it was like we didn't really have a coach, we did have a GM, we had three captains. I think it was Clayne, Greg Cousins, and myself that year. Whereas like to turn the page to now, there are three really clearly defined coaches. They are talking to each other all the time. They're communicating to us, they're planning things, and we are really more of like a player liaison kind of, like more of a player first leader, like leadership member that's pulling strings, making calls, who's on active 20 whatever, like sort of second. And I personally, like if I have to focus on performing on the field, I like that freedom to just be a player and focus on my game, focus on, meshing in with everybody else. And it's a pretty good balance this year, I think, where I feel like it's a nice, you know, being a captain is really really fun this year.
So I'm sure you have a pretty good grasp of just like the vibe of the team this year. Like, how would you describe what the team is feeling? I guess just the season overall, and then also kind of second question to that is like, has that changed throughout the season? Like, what is the vibe among the players this year?
I think it's a really positive social culture. Probably the most overtly positive since I've been on the squad, where everybody's just sort of in it together, and like team success is team success and team failure is team failure. And at the same time, we're not like losing sucks. It's not fun, but we are, that has not impacted so far the way that we interact with each other once the game's over. Or like, during the game, if things aren't going well, we have done a pretty good job, I think, of looking inward and being like, hey, things aren't going well, and it's okay to acknowledge that, but like it's also our fault. And if we're gonna do something better in the future, it's gonna be because of us too. So like let's bear down and get it done, and that's a pretty good way, I think, for a team to respond to adversity. And the team also like socially off the field is like we're all pretty good friends. A lot of us play on the same club teams. It's like I feel like most of the male matching players on Dragon are on the team. There's a pretty heavy Sub-Zero contingent, so like we've we all know each other. A lot of us have been playing for a long time, and it's definitely a fun group and a fun vibe, and everybody kind of has their like different veins of humor, and so it's pretty fun.
Okay, I want to know who's the funniest on the team now, or like who's getting the most laughs.
That's a really hard question, because there's just lots of different like types of a character. I think like personally, I think that Mike Peterson is hilarious. Like most of the time that Mike contributes vocally to something, I think it's pretty funny. Um, but like also, okay, no, actually, I think that the funniest person on the team might be like Gordon Larson. Gordon Larson is hilarious. Like I just spent the weekend with him up in Ely, and it's just like his timing, his like little fragment of a conversation, like latch onto and make a joke about, like it's all there. He's hilarious. Um, Paul's got a lot of anti jokes, so like those are like just like egregiously not funny, and that's its own brand. So it's like there's a bunch of different characters. It's really hard to pick like a total favorite. I think Bert is also just like hilarious. Just him being himself is like he's just a character. It's super fun. But yeah, I know those are some like definitely jokesters on the team.
Okay, every single one of those players you just list. If you're listening, we'd love to get you on the podcast. Had to get that in there.
Just back to this like being the captain. See, so you mentioned you were a captain in 2018, and now it's different now. So what do you like at practices? How do you impact practices now as a captain?
Yeah, so like we're still involved in, if we have a certain look that we need to explain that is maybe different than what we've done before, and we're on the whiteboard. Like everybody kind of has their own areas of expertise, and so if like what we need to talk about is something that like an individual player, if the person in leadership that is most suited to lead that talk on the concept or something is a captain, then we still are involved in that X's and O's talk. But largely at practice, we're just playing, trying to lead by example, compete every opportunity, give feedback to the coaches. Like if a drill is really aggressive on the legs and we didn't anticipate that, like come over and be like, hey, I'm gassed. Like we might need to move on or shorten it, or adjust what we do for the rest of practice because of the extra exertion here. So yeah, I would say not as administrative, much more just kind of go get it done, try to lead by example, and set the standard for work ethic and try to live into kind of that.
That's pretty cool. So as a player then, away from the captainship a little bit, like how does it feel returning to the team pretty much full time after missing a majority of last season? Like I remember we had we had grilled out in the parking lot of Seafoam last year, and your parents had actually stopped by and said hey to us.
Oh,
And
sure.
we had a little interaction. We're like, oh cool, that's Colin Berry's parents. And we're like, can't wait to see him play. And I think that was the game that they had announced like your injury or like you're out for that game. And then I don't think you maybe you returned for one game after that, but story aside, like you had missed a good chunk of last season. So how does it feel to be back pretty much full time this season?
I mean, it's awesome, man. Like the I think if you asked any player who plays this much, just in general, just a lot of ultimate going on, club, ADL, whatever. Anyone who plays that much frisbee, what the worst thing could possibly happen for your season is just getting hurt. Not being able to do it the way you want to, not being able to do it at all. Um, the conditioning that you lose while you're hurt, so that when you do come back, and it's another on ramp where you got to get like back into game shape. Like it's just not fun for anybody. It's just amazing being able to play. So like, yeah, I was out basically the entire last half of, I think week 5 or something like that was my last healthy game where we kicked the crap out of Indy, and then I don't think I played a full game until the playoffs. And then I played like 8 or 10 points or something in the Chicago playoff game, which is a lower point count than I usually have. So it was definitely a adjustment last year, trying to like stay engaged and be feel like I'm part of the team and feel like I could help somehow, even like when I definitely couldn't do it with my legs. It took most of the off season for me. This was my first like major injury in my career that like really sidelined me for multiple months, and it was a long off season of like slowly progressing rehab, and it being able now to like at the very beginning of the season I was still kind of like I wasn't bidding, like my throwing shoulder was what I hurt in the playoff game against Colorado last season, or not Colorado, sorry, Chicago. And so I like at the very beginning of practice I still couldn't huck, so it's like it's a really freeing feeling to just sort of be able to go out there and like send it, and it's a lot of weight off of your like shoulders as you're playing, where you're monitoring like, okay, that disc is up, it's like a little far, like do I half bid, like can I roll over and like land on my back so that I don't hurt myself, like that's not fun to have to process. So it's like just amazing to be able to like come in, carve out a role, try to do my role to the best of my ability, and like not have to worry about what I can't do, or those kinds of things.
Right. Well, it certainly has been great seeing you play again this year. Definitely a lot of fun. So what has surprised you about the team or the season up until this point?
I think that just like the general goofiness and the vibe, and that not necessarily like taking away from our on-field product. Like in the past, we had like a lot of our more involved players were slightly like just generally more serious people, more serious about like ultimate was like sort of work first, and slightly less like hanging out with the dudes at times. And I wouldn't say that I like prefer one or the other. Like when I was in college, Luther was a super, super serious music program. Like I was going to have to miss regionals one year for like a super unimportant concert. And then regionals got moved, and I was able to play, but like that was the vibe there. And so I am fine with that. And like, it's really fun to be goofing around, and then when it's time to take it serious, we take it serious, and then the game's over. And like after the Chicago game that we lost in Chicago, we were like eating pizza by the vans in the parking lot, and I like look over, and Sam Berglund and Bevon are like trying to entice these like seagulls to come over and like get into our group by like offering them these little pieces of like pizza crusts. And Bevon is like throwing this pizza crusts in the air, trying to get like this bird to like snatch it out of the air. And it's just like that's like a, you know, that's a great way to distract yourself from a loss that we felt like we could have definitely won that game. And so it's nice to just like have a goofier stand like baseline, so that then like when things go wrong and we're less goofy than usual, we're still like kind of goofy. It was still like fun. So
That's wholesome. Were they successful in getting those birds some pizza?
I'm like pretty sure that the birds snagged some pizza out of the air. I don't recall who threw it. Maybe we'll need to like do some investigations into through the pizza crust, but I'm pretty sure a bird like snagged some, which is pretty awesome.
That is pretty sweet.
Yeah.
Of those two, who do you think initiated the trying to get seagulls to come and eat pizza?
Sam Berglund. I went to college with Sam Berglund. We first started playing together in 2013, which is like 10 years ago, which is wild. But yeah, he's like a super goofy dude. Him and I have been friends for a really long time, and I don't know. I'm pretty sure that Sam got really excited about these geese, or not geese, seagulls, and we're just started doing his thing.
So you mentioned you've been playing with Sam for a while, but this is your first year playing with him on the chill, correct?
It's my first time playing with him since college. So 2015 was the last time that I played with him, because up here, his club time has been with Dragon Thrust, and I've been playing for Sub-Zero. So we haven't really played together as like, you know, adults, if you will. So yeah, it's awesome to be like kind of reunited. I love playing with Sam. He's great.
Awesome.
That's great. Yeah, there's actually a lot of new pieces to this wind chill roster. So let's talk about that depth. Obviously, it's really good on one hand because it means that when you need a fresh line out there, you can kind of piece it together after a long game. But it also comes with a little bit of inconsistency with those lines. So where do you think the pros and cons are with having such a deep roster like the one we do have, and how has Minnesota been approaching that this year?
Yeah, interesting question. I like that. So the depth piece, you know, I mean, it feels great to have a team that has been able to, you know, keep piecing wins together, as we've had sort of like a revolving door. Like that one, I think our home Chicago game, we didn't have a single like general O-line rotation. Like Klain, Abe, Cheetah, and Will Brandt were all gone. Those are our four rotation O-line handlers. And so then we had, I think it was Tristan, Tyler, and then Becker was our three backfield presences. And, you know, they threw the disc a million times that game, and we were able to get the win. And I mean, that feels great. Being able to lean on your depth in like a pretty bright lights type of moment and have them grow and step up to the plate is really huge, right? Like those are the opportunities that make players grow, because they are being pushed outside of that comfort zone, and those opportunities don't always arise, right? Like how often do you see, like in sports in general, you know, like a standby player just occupy a position forever, and then, you know, the person that fills those shoes, there's just lots of question marks, right? So we don't love the reason those opportunities arose, right? Like if I could pick to just not have Abe get hurt, or, you know, not have Will come back from D3 Nationals with any injuries, or, you know, have, you know, cheat his schedule and life generally keep him around, like, yeah, that's definitely what I would pick. But since that's happening, I mean, it's just great to see those guys come in, step up, not be scared. Like a lot of those guys too are pretty veteran players, you know, like Berglund coming across and handling the disc a lot for us on offense. He's 28 years old. Like Tristan has been around Sub-Zero. I played with him, since 2016. So like, even though these guys are, Tyler spent time on Sub-Zero. So like, those are kind of my personal connections. And I think the other people that are sharing the field with these newer pieces also have their own separate set of like tertiary connections that make it easier to like slot those people in, like guys have strengths. And so when like Tyler, for instance, has really great breakthrows. So when Tyler slots over, it's like, okay, we're going to attack the break space like a little more aggressively to utilize that skill set. So I don't know, I guess I started rambling a little bit there, but it's really a positive thing to have the depth step up. Hopefully we get our pieces back and then they're able to go back, play defense and then be at the helm for possessions later and have their experience that they needed to step up for really aid them in their consistency on the other side of the ball, less pressure. But at the same time, you get less defensive opportunities. So when you do get the turnover, you really need to make sure you punch it in. So hopefully the injuries aren't ideal, but hopefully we're able to turn the experience that everybody got through that injury process into a better thing, later in the season when we have everybody back.
Yeah. So then I guess as a player, like you've been playing a lot of defense, but now this year you're seeing yourself more on offense. I guess I haven't looked at your actual splits, but I know that you're been kind of transitioning to offense. Like, how has that switch been for you?
It's interesting. It's totally different. In the sense that like in the past, when we get turns, like the guy that I'm guarding, I used to guard like usually people's big scary guy, and then when we get the turn, we want him running, and so I would generally like we usually play vertical stack in my time on the defense, and I would come off the back, and then we just run, and it's different now in that my role is very different because I used to when I was playing defense I even had sort of differing roles, and depending on what year it was, I was a lot more of a backfield presence, kind of more helping facilitate, I would say, in the last couple of years for the defense. This year on offense, I'm trying to stay out of the backfield, right? We're trying to utilize my height, my potential mismatches when you've got Bevon and Quinn pulling generally defenders 1 and 2. I'm pretty tall, and so if guys, you obviously you're going to put a really great defender on Quinn, and so then potentially I'll have a mismatch, and so we're trying to keep me down, gaining yards, maintaining possession. I haven't done a great job the last couple of games there. I need to really pick that up, but that's much more my job now is to gain yards, keep it alive. When I do catch it in the second layer of the defense and I have, Bevon or Jordan Taylor or Marco, Will Brandt, like any of those guys that are really great matchups, if I'm able to throw to a one-on-one, then I try to hit try to hit that isolation shot. But, that's super different from the way that I played on the defense.
All right. So looking to your upcoming games, you have Madison, then Indy, then Chicago, and then Detroit. So I mean, other than that last game, it doesn't really look like that easy of a schedule for you guys. So what's your strategy? What's your plan? How are you heading into these games?
I mean, I think the biggest thing is you have to take it one game at a time. Anybody can beat you, and you do not want to get caught looking to the next week. So I think, when you have a doubleheader, you're doing kind of like simultaneous prep because you don't have time between those games to like create a new game plan. You kind of have to go in pretty well prepared to the weekend. But like, yeah, we're not, other than keeping an eye on like the availability attendance grid, we're not thinking about those second and third games at all. We need to beat Madison. We need to beat them in Madison. That's a really hard thing to do. That's a pretty rowdy crowd. That's consistently a place that is going to create a lot of pressure with the environment, and so we can't. We need to win this game. We now have the same number of losses, I think, and less wins than Indy. So we gotta get it done. We just gotta win out, right? And we need to take it one game at a time. We only play Indy twice, like logistically, we only play them twice, so there's not really a season series to take. So like if we have the same record and we split, then that tiebreaker looks very different. If we're able to take, or I guess there is a series to take, but there's not a third opportunity to do it, right? You just have to win both of them. Like that would be huge. We need to. Our goal is to be the number 1 seed for the Central and host a playoff game to go to championship weekend, right? And so we are in a advantageous position in the sense that we control our own destiny, but also we can't afford to drop one. So we have to really zoom in each opponent and take them one at a time.
Yeah, that makes sense. Kind of stepping away from the wind chill a little bit, like I'm very curious if you have any like predictions or opinions on the Detroit Mechanics this year. Like they've brought a few pretty strong opponents to just a couple points. Like I want to hear, do you think that they can end the streak this year?
I mean, yeah. So when we went to Detroit, like there was a moment, I think it was like late third quarter or something like that. I think we were up 14-13. It was like tight. And we turned the disc over, and I think it might have been like a short field or something like that. And that was not a great moment. Like I think we out or something like that. We got it back, and we were able to punch it in. I don't recall exactly what happened in that instance for the resolution of that, but yeah, that was like, oh boy, the pressure's on. We got to get this thing back, and that's not usually how you feel in the past few years. In the middle of the third quarter against Detroit, their offense looks way better than it has in past years. They're in my opinion, that was the best Detroit team that I played since being in the league. They lost by 1 to Indy. They were only down by 3 to us going to the fourth quarter. I have no idea if they're going to win. I don't want to like jinx it. I feel like if I speak anything right now, then it puts a lot on that last game for us. And
yeah,
they're going to do their best to put together complete games. And for them, I think they feel like they're one complete game as a team away from having a win. So we have to make sure that we have a better complete game,
Yeah, that's true. I mean, as an Ultimate fan, it's been really fun to watch this storyline this season progress with them. But yeah, like as a wind chill fan, it's like you do want to, yeah, tighten up that game. But I don't know. They're like, I romanticize sports. Like I'm a big baseball guy. I love the Cinderella story, but they're not quite a Cinderella story this year. But
yeah, I mean, we do love Detroit games. Like when
yeah,
that they were tight with Indy, we all whipped out our phones, started streaming.
yeah,
Every time they play Pittsburgh, historically that's been a great matchup for them, and so you tune in and you hope they do it against someone other than you,
yeah,
like because they're going to win a game, which is how it is. You just really don't want to be on the other side of that particular L, right?
right. Okay, I think I just have one last question, kind of like a nice wrap up question, unless the other two have any. But if you could give like one word to describe the team this year, like what would you say? How would you describe the team this year in one word?
Interesting. It's tough. As you guys get to know me better, you'll know that brevity is not my strong suit. Let's see. I think in multiple ways, I would say so far responsive. We've come out poorly in multiple games. It hasn't always bitten us. There have been times that we've been able to pull it. Even the Chicago game that we lost, we battled back and we were within a couple going into that fourth quarter. It felt like a game, and then we quickly made it no longer a game, right? But responding to those things are the thing that separates you from the competition. And you can't hope that things go great all the time. That's just not the nature of sports. It's not the nature of humans doing things, right? People make mistakes. It's how it goes. But then like what you do next, or how you're able to leave it in the past and look forward, those are the things that are going to like separate you from the results that you want. Like a moment is standing out in my mind. I was talking in the huddle going into the fourth quarter, our last Madison game, and we had the exact same score going into halftime as the first time we played them. And the first time we played them, we promptly made it a 1-goal game again, and gave it, gave them a whole new breath of life, and had to really scrap to take the game from them in the fourth quarter. We didn't want to do that again, and we came out and we played the third quarter, and it didn't. We came with great energy, but we did not execute in a way that kept the momentum we wanted rolling. And so going into that fourth quarter, it was like, I think the theme of the talk was like, hey guys, like we went out there with a goal to put the pressure on them and widen the margin, and it just didn't happen. And whether we like that or not, that has already happened. And so we need to put that in our pocket and say, okay, we tried it, and we gave it our best shot, and we weren't able to do it. If we focus on us and let the scoreboard take care of itself, I think that we'll be able to do what we want, right? Focus on our game, play the way we want to play, the way we know we can play, and then let everything else fall into place. And I mean, our D went on a huge run, right? Like our defense playing well for 3 of those 4 quarters was why we won that game. They just had great tenacity. So I think responsive.
That is it. That's a really good answer. That's really I love the kind of the behind the scenes of like what is said in the huddle, and just like the headspace of the players quarter to quarter, like the minutia. Each quarter is a game in itself sometimes, and
Totally.
that's really cool to see.
Sweet.
All right, Jay, Kane, you guys have any other last questions? No, Colin, do you have any questions for us? I mean, we've really loved having you on.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, how long have you guys been coming to Windchill games? Like, did you start the podcast shortly after discovering the Windchill, or has it been like brewing? What's the inception there?
So okay, there's kind of a weirdly long history. We can go like way back. Like in short, we very randomly picked up a disc one day, like summer of 2016. That's when we started like really getting into the sport. Fast forward a couple years, and then we heard about the wind chill. I don't think we got to a wind chill game until 2021. I think was our first official wind chill game. I think I only went to one. I think you guys went to a couple. And then 2022 we were like, yeah, let's go out, let's go big, because like the fans were fun, but like I was like we could really make this an experience. Like it's a little quiet in the stands.
Totally.
So we were like, okay, if we're gonna show up to games this year in 2022, like we're gonna bring the signs, we're gonna bring the energy. And so then we did, and like this podcast then basically to and from Windchill games was pretty much us, like the podcast that we have now, the articles that we write now are pretty much what we've talked about just in the car. Now we just have a mic in front of us.
Sure.
But, yeah, it's been really fun to get to interview some players and like get more insights and like round out the way we talk about the game. And like, yeah, because there are times where we say something that's just like wrong, and like Tucker will be right on. It's like, well, actually, I think this is probably a better way to look at it. I'm like, yeah, that's true, because the team, the sport way better than we do, but we're still learning how to talk about it. So
sweet. That's really cool. I love the
yeah.
like nature of that, right? Like, we already talked about all this stuff. We might as well do it with the mic and making content. Right?
Yeah, it's gotten some pretty good engagement, I think. So I think people are starting to like it, but
I read all your stuff. I think it's fun. I think it's super cool. the idea of like a third party, just like observing the wind chill and making, this is what I see. And like as a player, sometimes, you talk about stuff we're bad at and it's not like super fun, but you gotta cope with that, right? Like it's gonna get brought up if when people care about what's going on and something's not going great, like it's gonna get talked about. So you gotta you gotta roll with it.
Right. Well, yeah, and it all comes from that place of passion. Like we're big baseball fans, and I read like the Twins Daily. Uh,
Sure.
they do articles and stuff, and I'm like, yeah, like that totally makes sense. And sometimes it's negative, sometimes it's positive, but either way, it's about the team that I like and I enjoy watching, whether they're winning or losing. Like, and so yeah, kind of the same thing with the wind chill. Like, yeah, you're not going to win every game, and every win's not going to be the pretty, but there's something to talk about, and it's interesting then. So.
Totally. Cool.
Yeah. Well, it's like I said, it's been so great having you on. I feel like it's been a couple of months of us trying to line up our schedule. So glad we could finally get it figured out.
Yeah, totally. It's fun. I'm glad that it worked out because like I don't know, the first time when you mentioned it, I talked to my mom a lot and I like it mentioned that you guys like wanted to do an episode and then she's like, oh, I want to watch it, and then she's like, when is that going to happen? And I was like, I have no idea, honestly. We'll figure it out when it happens.
Yeah.
But need to make it happen.
Yeah, definitely. And just for you, I think we'll post it probably tomorrow. I don't know what the 4th of July, but so you can let your mom know as soon as possible. It'll be out probably July 3rd. But
Sweet, sweet.
All right. Yeah. And again, for all of our listeners, I just want to thank you all for listening, for following us along. Definitely encourage you to keep up with the wind chill as they close out the season, hopefully in a good seed, hopefully first place, but again, don't want to jinx it. Let's just say let's a good playoff seed. We'll be at most of the games going forward. And of course, this episode is presented by the R1P1 Network. They've been doing some great work with our thumbnails and all of our social media graphics for these episodes. So thank you to the R1P1 Network. And we will see you on July 9th at Seafoam Stadium when Colin Berry, I'm assuming you're going to be there, and the rest of the wind chill take on the Indianapolis Alley Cats for first place in the division. So we'll see you there. And in the meantime, stay chilly.